Welcome to the Digital Dreaming Off the Ground podcast. It is a victory Sunday. It is your host, Ospali, joined by my co-host, the 49ers fan with the most, Sulman Haque. Sulman, how you doing today?
Yo, what's going on, man?
Oh my God. So let's just kind of get right into it. I mean, Niners win yesterday, obviously, 41-23. Brock Purdy gets get that playoff kind of monkey off his back, right? Because that narrative of, having an experience and the cobweb. So, obviously the Niners, they start off the game, a little bit rocky in the first half, allowing the Seattle Seahawks to come back in the second quarter and score 17 unanswered points. Then the Niners were able to, kind of clamp things down in the third quarter. And then obviously fourth quarter, that's when, Brock Purdy and the offense shined the most and scoring 18 points. And, Brock Purdy yesterday, was the first quarterback to go 6-0 while throwing multiple touchdowns, in all of his each of his six starts. First quarterback that was 6-0 in 49ers franchise history. And obviously first quarterback to actually start, rookie quarterback to start and win his first ever playoff start as a rookie. So kind of what stuck out to you yesterday watching the game? Because for me personally, seeing the defense, getting banged up in that first quarter, near the end of that first quarter, then line that touchdown, obviously, like, basically, getting banged up by Seattle's, both ground game and, passing offense and attack. Kind of what stuck out to you from yesterday's game?
Yeah, I would say, I was surprised at how much the play action was getting our defense. I
Yeah.
guess I guess they'd seen Kenneth Walker and what Kenneth Walker can kind of do, and so they were a little more concerned about him. But man, they were getting killed on that play action in the first half. Like every time Geno Smith was doing play action, I was like, "Oh crap, something big's about to happen," and it happened. So that stood out to me about the defense, but I think they did a good. They sort of adjusted there in the second half, but Seattle also kind of went away from the play action in the second half. So that's an area of concern we definitely got to keep an eye on, especially if we face a team like the Vikings with Dalvin Cook. That's a guy that can, that the Vikings will live off play action, right? With Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook, that's their bread and butter right there. So definitely something D'Amico Ryan's got to look into, as we prepare for the next week. And then, man, just how well Brock Purdy is able to navigate the Shanahan offense, make plays, has that pocket presence about him for a guy who's a rookie, has only played 6 games now. And he just looks like a seasoned veteran in there. And that, I mean, it helps when you have all those weapons that Shanahan, gave him, CMC, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, Juszczyk, he's surrounded by guys. But Purdy is, I mean, Jimmy G was surrounded with these guys and he wasn't making the level of plays that Purdy was making. So I think there is a talent there. And I think the 49ers have discovered a hidden gem there with Purdy. And you know me, when the season started, I was telling you, I love Trey Lance. Trey Lance is going to be the guy. But I think Trey Lance's time here on the Niners might be coming to an end, or maybe they keep him around, but it's hard to go to Trey Lance, who's so raw. I mean, he's super talented. He probably has, all the athletic ability in the world, can probably learn these things, but Purdy just looks ready now. And when you have a, defense and an offense that's ready to win now, how can you go back to a Trey Lance type of player?
100%. You actually touched on some really interesting points, because, a lot of the debate, about Brock Purdy and, obviously, you said the QB debate, it harkens back to my last guest, 49ers great Randy Cross. When he was on Friday, he basically said the same thing. In the sense that, the 49ers have so many offensive weapons at their disposal, and the Kyle Shanahan offense, being a very difficult offense to navigate, but seeing Brock Purdy as a rookie just come in, step in and take hold, basically take the bulls by the horn, so to speak, of the offense and still be able to, play within the offense and be able to also maximize and just get better every single week. Like we said, kind of what you said about, obviously, the pocket presence, what I saw and what everyone else saw, if they're watching, right? His ability to extend the plays, his ability to kind of get out of the pocket, his ability to kind of make plays, when it breaks down, that's an added element we haven't seen, from the quarterbacks, of recent, especially from Jimmy. And obviously, before Jimmy went hurt, obviously the guy's like a statue, right? And that's actually how he got hurt. He got hurt when he wasn't his blind sign was he wasn't checking it, right? And then obviously, he gets crumpled, by the two Miami, defenders, and his ankle, what was the ankle, right? I forgot
Yep.
the injury.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like his ankle, like a high ankle sprain, or like almost a fractured ankle, something
Yeah,
like that.
something like that. Yeah. And so
Something like that.
basically,
Yeah.
for that, I mean, that was something that we hadn't seen for a long time. I would say I would even go back as far as say Steve Young esque, in terms of kind of Brock's performance and his ability to make plays with his feet. And I think another point, that you touched upon, which also Randy was talking about, on Friday, the fact that there is that quarterback controversy, if Brock wins, if Brock is able to lead the Niners to the promised land and win the Super Bowl, there's definitely gonna be a very very strong like debate, because you're gonna have Jimmy, Trey, and Brock, and it's a good problem to have. But with that said, obviously with the amount of capital that that the Niners have given up for Trey, it's really difficult for me to see them, just throw him away or trade him, for a bag of peanuts when they sacrifice so much draft capital, right? And so it might just
Yeah,
be a
yeah,
saving base measure. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, they gave up a lot for him, but I think you're already now at this point, right? 2023 is the last year where they gave up the first rounder.
Yeah.
I would say you would only trade Trey Lance if you can maybe recoup a first, or maybe you get like a second and a third, maybe,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think for sure they'll keep Trey on the roster. And if Purdy goes far, like, okay, maybe if we get eliminated next week, then maybe it's a much bigger debate in my mind than, okay, do we stay Purdy? Do we stay Trey? But if Purdy takes us to the NFC Championship game, I don't think it's a debate anymore. Like, Purdy has the tools. He's gotten you there. At a minimum, he's getting you to an NFC Championship game. He's only going to get better. This was his rookie season. Whereas Trey is still raw, man. Trey, he's played in a total of 5 games in like 4 years or something like that, like 3
Right.
years.
Yeah.
Like, and going back to his college days, like he hasn't played since like 2019, man.
Yeah.
So that's the crazy thing. And Trey is raw. Don't get me wrong. Trey is raw. Like, I'm sure if everything went perfect for Trey Lance and he had, another 2 years here under Shanahan, we're talking about him as almost a Josh Allen type like player. But, the injury derailed him a little bit, not having enough development in college derailed him a little bit. And you can see the difference, right? It's a night and day difference between him and Purdy. Like, Purdy played 4 years in college. He kind of came from a pro style offense. So these things make a little bit of a difference. And Purdy's just ready to win now, right? Maybe if you're talking about long-term career trajectory, maybe this is the best we're seeing of Brock Purdy, and maybe he doesn't get better than this. That's fine. But you just don't know what Trey Lance is, right? And I guess it's this question of, is Brock Purdy going to get better? Is he going to stay the same, or is he going to regress? And what's Trey Lance? Like, you got to weigh that against what is the potential of Trey Lance, right? So I can definitely see Shanahan and Lynch. They don't do the conventional, whatever the conventional wisdom is. They'll be like, oh, we got Trey, we got Brock Purdy, we're going to roll with both. They're not going to be like, oh, we have our quarterback, that's Purdy, so we're going to move off from Lance. But I think they would definitely listen if some team came calling and was like, hey, we'll give you a first rounder for Trey Lance. Well, they definitely listen for that.
100%. I think the point you just made is massive in regards to kind of the situation where Trey was drafted in. I mean, the problem is Niners are in win now mode, right? Exactly. And so if Trey was drafted anywhere else, such as like say Josh Allen when he was drafted to the Bills and he struggled those first couple seasons until he had his breakout year in 2020, I think then it would provide an opportunity for Trey to obviously develop, but also, right, I mean, obviously the debate was about how Shanahan was using Trey, kind of like, running him up the middle like a fullback and, not necessarily, using him, playing him to his strengths when he does have arm talent. I think the issue was that Trey's scrambling ability was a little bit overrated to some level, because, I mean, I think the idea of him being a dual threat quarterback, maybe it was just, obviously, for his stature and size and, kind of what he was able to do at the FCS level. I mean, but when you look at his scrambling ability, he's actually, I mean, I just watched, like, I rewatched some film, last night. He's not like a Kaepernick, or he's not like a Cam Newton, or even like a Josh Allen, where, he's able to just kind of, break and then take off once the play but the pocket breaks down, or the play breaks down, he's still kind of a little bit kind of like a Jimmy-esque kind of mobile scrambler.
I'll give you a more interesting quarterback.
Yeah.
Dante Culpepper.
Right, there you go. It's perfect.
That's what he reminds me of, right? Because like Dante Culpepper could break it, but he's not like, he doesn't have the wheels, right? He could break outside the pocket a little bit back in the day, but he doesn't have the wheels to go upfield and just like bust out a 75-yard run, but he could do it every now and then. And I think Trey's kind of like that. He's kind of built like Dante Culpepper too.
100%. And I think that's the issue. I think the reason why, Trey's injury happened was because of the fact that I think Kyle was overrating his scrambling and his rushing ability. I mean, because, he referenced Josh Allen in the post game conference that, Buffalo uses their quarterback the same way, but Josh Allen is so incredibly fast. It's just like, I mean, these guys, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, these guys are 1 in a million type of quarterbacks, where you can see them be able to make plays on both, the ground and through the air. So, I mean, but again, I mean, Trey, he definitely, like you said, long-term trajectory, maybe Trey, does have a brighter future because he has a higher ceiling. And if he's in the right system, he can develop. But at the end of the day, that's potential. I mean, we're in the win now mode, you got to go on production. And like Matt Mayoko said in the post game yesterday, if this is Brock Purdy's best, then he said we are in good standing for a long time. Because
exactly.
I mean that's
right.
I mean, yeah. So
I mean, for me, I think the problem, like if you I think the problem was like I don't know why they thought we need to go get a quarterback. Like they had the roster built to kind of contend for multiple years with Jimmy at quarterback. So I wasn't really sure of the thinking of let's go trade up for Trey Lance. Me personally, I wanted Justin Fields. I was like, okay, we're going up to 3. Are we going up for Justin Fields? Like that was my thinking. But I was like, but did we have to trade up to 3? I feel like at least like if their 3 guys are really like they were deciding between Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, I was like, why not just wait and see where they fall, right? Like I didn't understand the need to like trade up like 3 weeks ahead of the draft and like tip your hand like, hey, we're coming for a quarterback. I feel like, and the way we saw the draft play out, Justin Fields was there at 11, Mac Jones was there at 15. I'm sure Trey Lance would have been there at 9 or 10. Like the Broncos were locked in on Patrick Surtain too. Dallas was going with Micah Parsons. So that's like I just didn't understand the logic at that time. I mean, you give Jimmy another year or two, wait for him to play out his contract, and maybe you bring someone in the next year, like give wherever you draft. So I just didn't understand the logic. And then the biggest problem with Jimmy and the difference between Jimmy and Purdy is Jimmy gets scared under pressure. Like you could just see the fear in that guy's eyes when the pressure is coming. It's reasonable because every time he's seen pressure and he's tried to like. I think it was that Kansas City game like 2-3 years ago where he tried to take off and he tore his ACL, right? Mm-hmm. And so like ever since then he's been kind of scared to see pressure, and he's just trying to get the ball out, and sometimes he makes boneheaded throws because of that, things like that. Versus like you can see Purdy's eyes, and he is still scanning the field. He knows pressure is coming. He's still scanning the field. He's like, okay, let me try to escape. Let me do my little loop-de-loop, whatever. But he keeps his eyes downfield and is always trying to make a play. Versus Jimmy's like, oh crap, here comes the blitzers. Let me just make sure I don't fumble this damn ball.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
No, 100%. And exactly kind of, my earlier point about, Jimmy's lack of mobility. And like, I think that's part of the reason why, like you said, because of the fact he's sustained so many injuries throughout his career during with the Niners, just trying to make plays and, not being, just that lack of pocket presence. And that's pretty much what it is. Brock Purdy has much more pocket presence than Jimmy does because of the fact, like you said, he feels it a little bit better. He feels when the pressure is coming, and he's able to make better decisions either through scrambling or at least, getting rid of the ball. Jimmy, I mean, for some reason, the instincts aren't there. I mean, we've seen so many times where Jimmy's taking a sack or he throws a pick or he even takes a safety, right? Against the Denver Broncos, just because of the fact he's not able to that pressure. So I mean, I think and the thing is, Brock Purdy is literally, we've never seen this ever happen before. Not just in the Niners, but NFL history. I mean, Brock Purdy is a complete anomaly. To have a player be drafted 262nd overall, be stressed in the middle of the season, and just be able to take the reins and not even lose a single game throughout that span. And people are basically one of the biggest debates, obviously, I mean, for people who are not Niner fans, obviously, okay, the system, the offensive weapons. We saw Trevor Lawrence coming back, and people said Brock Purdy hasn't faced that level of adversity where he's had to be forced to come back down 20. But ultimately, if you look at it, I mean, Jimmy was in that same system for over 5-6 seasons with the same weapons that Brock had, and ultimately, I mean, we saw a complete lack of production. I think Jimmy it was around 15 touchdowns in 16 games or something like that, or maybe something it was 6,
like that,
or 6 touchdowns,
I mean, we won a playoff game where we only passed the ball 6 times, right? So Jimmy quarterback. So exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like Brock Purdy has the ability to make plays. I mean, he's not perfect, right? He's not the perfect quarterback. the one thing I get scared when I see Brock Purdy is like, you'll see him do the play action and he's looking downfield and he's trying to make that deep throw. I'm like, oh man, if this is over 30 yards, I'm not sure Brock Purdy can make that throw, right?
Yeah.
That's only like, I would say that's probably the biggest knock on the guy, but he's just been amazing, man. Like, I don't know how you can just say, oh yeah, next year you go back to Trey. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't even like, I'm like 100% saying Jimmy is gone. He's probably going to the Jets. He's probably, linking up with Robert Saleh, going to the Jets, being that veteran QB there. And he's getting another nasty defense and a great run game. And that's what works, right? You can kind of trust Jimmy when you have that kind of environment around him. Sure. And it's 10 times better than Zach Wilson, who's apparently Ryan Leaf 2.0.
Yeah.
But so that's where Jimmy's going. And really now it comes down to Purdy and Lance. And, Purdy is showing he's already won a playoff game here. He's already gone 6-0. He threw for 330 yards and 4 touchdowns, man. Like in his first playoff game, dude is amazing. Like, I don't know why people are still trying to like discredit the guy. Like he's a 7th round draft pick, whatever. Tom Brady was a 6th round draft pick. The guy's like, he won like 7 Super Bowls. Like it's possible. Sometimes it happens, right? It's not like you said, it's an anomaly, and you're never gonna like really see that every time in the league. But every once in a while, you will see a guy like Brock Purdy or Tom Brady come through. I'm not saying it's Tom Brady, but you will see these guys who kind of like people underestimated them, and they really just come through and shine in the NFL.
It's funny you mentioned Tom Brady. When I had Randy on Friday, I basically said, do you see Joe Montana-esque qualities? And then Randy says, get back to me when he wins the 3 Super Bowls, then we can have that discussion.
Yeah, exactly. He's not. You can't start calling him Joe Montana, Tom Brady just yet.
Right.
I would even say Steve Young is a little bit of a stretch.
Absolutely.
But I would say a pretty fair comparison for him is like a little bit of a bigger Jeff Garcia. Like, I see a lot of Jeff Garcia in his game.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Jeff Garcia, if Jeff Garcia had this team with this defense, because that was the biggest knock. I mean, the Niners of the early 2000s just didn't have a defense. And,
Yep, exactly.
I mean, I think if they had this level of defense, like let's say like the Buccaneers, they actually lost to the Buccaneers in 2002 in the divisional round, who had a historic defense. I mean, you give Jeff Garcia that defense, or you give him this defense, because they're basically on par, in my opinion. I mean, you can imagine, how many rings, the Niners would have, in this millennium. So.
Yeah. And I think that was in the wild card round. They were like down big, like 30 plus points to the Giants. And Jeff Garcia brought us back. And, if Terrell Owens doesn't say things about Jeff Garcia, sticks around on the Niners, and they get a nasty defense. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't know why T.O. was like, I'm going to start talking crap about Jeff Garcia, but that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I mean, we're focusing on the wins. We're focusing. It's a victory Sunday. Some more stats. Niners had 505 yards total offense. The most they've had, all season. Obviously a lot of the Niners, writers such as, Lombardi and, Hammer and everyone basically on Twitter were saying that, this is the best game they see the Niners put together. I mean, a lot of fans are basically chiming in stating that, it's not the best, most complete game, but it was the best second half that they've seen, for the Niners put together. But, I mean, you could make the argument it was the most complete game because, they did have a deficit and they were able to come back and, basically ultimately shut down the Seahawks in the second half by only allowing them to go, 7 points. And we saw the same thing against the Cardinals, right? I think they're trailing, but was it 16, whatever, then or 13, whatever it was. And then, the Niners, they came back, they went 38-7, close out the game. So, and over the 6-game stretch, the Niners have basically averaged 33 points per game in the 6-game stretch. The last 4 games consecutively, they've averaged 37 plus points per game. So obviously the offensive kind of concerns at the start of the season aren't there anymore, right?
Nope.
Because with Brock Purdy and with Christian McCaffrey, kind of with these guys, this is a 3-headed monster between Debo. I'd say it's a 4-headed monster with Debo, McCaffrey, Purdy, and George Kittle. A guy who can basically be a facilitator in this offense, almost like the West Coast offense with Joe Montana started, early in his career. I mean, basically, where you just have to make the 8 to 9 yard slant. If Jerry Rice is open, if Christian McCaffrey or Debo's open, they can take that and go 75 yards right to the house, right? So, I mean, that to me is the most remarkable thing, that a rookie can, just like we talked about, just be able to make those smart decisions. And, I mean, that might be enough, to help the Niners get over the hump. So.
Exactly. And, another thing about Purdy is he learns pretty quickly. There was a play in the game where he played action and he tried to take a deep shot to, I think, Jawan Jennings or someone.
Yeah.
But he couldn't hit it. Yeah, he couldn't hit it. But you saw Debo just landing across the middle wide open.
Yeah.
And he missed it. And then I think later in the game, he there's like a kind of like a similar type. It wasn't a play action play, but it was a similar type play, and he makes sure he finds Debo on that play, and I think Debo, that's the one Debo takes to the house. He kind of slanted back this way to the left, and I think he hits Debo there, and Debo takes that one to the house. So Purdy learns quick. Like he that was like, I was like, damn, he already processed that mistake, learned from it, and he's like, I'm gonna make sure I find Debo on the next time out on this kind of play. So
100%. No, I mean, you can see him learning from his mistakes. I mean, it was funny because I remember in the first quarter, he basically had Juwan Jennings for a touchdown. He hesitated and he waited. The ball got there late, and then Woolen was able to break it up.
yep,
Because
yeah,
it
yep.
went. It was a perfectly thrown ball. I mean, it was just the timing, right? So,
Yep,
I
it was
mean,
like half a second earlier he would have hit it.
exactly right. And so that's kind of then we saw him, later in the third or the fourth, when he was able to convert that, that long was a 25-yard pass or 50, whatever it was, 20,
Yep.
25, 30 yard, I don't know what it was, to Jennings, between to Woolen and the other and the I think the weak side linebacker, I don't know if it was Neil or whoever it was, and it was right there in the breadbasket, just literally like an inch, between the fingertips of
Yeah.
both Woolen and the line
Yeah,
and
that was a
this
scary throw too. You're
yeah, it
like, damn.
was, but
He's like,
it's
damn, why
crazy.
didn't you should have put it a little bit more on the outside, but it's okay. You still put it in the breadbasket.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, but those throws and making those throws build confidence, right? Because especially when
mhm.
you're a rookie and this is your first kind of, he's still getting his legs under him. It's incredible to see him make those throws. And obviously, let's talk about the Ayuk throw that Ayuk just didn't haul in. The fourth quarter
Oh
when Brock was
man.
able to scramble and
Whew.
break the. I mean, first he escaped one sack, then he had to scram bootleg to the right, and then it was almost like it was literally like the catch. The catch where basically and this is obviously the 41st anniversary of the catch was this Wednesday. Rest in peace, Dwight Clark. Anyone listen to the Randy Cross
R.I.P. Dwight
episode,
Clark.
we
Yep.
give a tribute to him. But basically he bootlegs to the right, just like Joe Montana did, 41 years ago, and he throws it, and Ayuk's literally right in the back of the end zone. It's just he grabs it, but then it bounces off his chest and it just falls. I mean, it's one of those things where
He, he was trying too hard to make the catch. I think he's like trying to make sure he's in bounds, toe tap it.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
he lost a little, he's like, oh, the ball's here. And then he lost concentration a little bit on it from Ayuk. But I think totally unnecessary play by Purdy. Is like, dude, just throw the ball away. We're up like 38-17. We don't need you taking a shot to the ribs or whatever
yeah.
and getting yourself hurt for the next game. But I mean, obviously the awareness on that play is just amazing. But unnecessary given how big you were up, right? But yeah, that's totally a play like you say for later down the stretch where but he's the guy you can make that type of plays. All right, that's the ability you see, and he's willing to make those plays. Being up 38-17, he's willing to take a shot. If that was Jimmy G, dude, he's throwing that ball way out of the end zone.
Yeah. It's either gonna be way out of the end zone, or it's gonna be to the wrong player,
or that ball's going to Tariq Woolen somehow.
Absolutely. I mean, how many times we see Jimmy basically throw, how many over the middle interceptions to the Mike linebacker, just because he always liked that sweet spot, that's 5 to 6 yard, kind of hitch route, or 6 to 10 to hitch route, and then this right in the middle where I mean, Jennings, Jimmy were money, on third down for that every single time, but ultimately, I mean, you need to be able to kind of, spread it out a little bit more. And I think Brock, again, he brings that added element of, quarterback play. So, I mean, it's great. So
Exactly.
let's talk about the defense. Obviously, let's talk about Lenoir, right? Obviously, 28 yards. He held Tyler Lockett to only 28 yards, and he had that interception. I mean, Lenoir actually played very well. Ward struggled with DK Metcalf. DK obviously, he had almost over 100 yards, and he obviously had, I think 1 or 2 touchdowns, yesterday. So, I mean, I think it's a little interesting to see the secondary kind of, we're seeing the guys who we question step up, and we're seeing the guys who have been good and solid kind of, struggle. But then again, I mean, you're going up against DK Metcalf. It's very difficult, to kind of, bottle up a receiver like that. But, obviously, I mean, this is the playoffs, so you're gonna have those matchups, more than one occasion, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, ultimately, I think I was satisfied with how the defense was able to clamp it up. But I mean, for them to get down kind of how they did the first kind of, half, I don't know if they can get away with that, down the stretch, against a team, let's say like Philadelphia, or like who I asked Randy about Philadelphia, Buffalo, Kansas City. But I mean, Randy's thought was that obviously the defense, I mean, they can rise to the occasion in the second half, which they did. I mean, he's like Nostradamus when he said that. And basically, if they're able to do that and make the necessary plays, then the offense, just has to do the minimum. Obviously, the offense is doing a lot more than the minimum, right? But
Yeah.
Kind of, what's your take on how you saw the defense play?
I thought it was kind of interesting. We didn't see Lenoir targeted as much as he was in like the other games, like versus the Raiders and things like that. But he played well. He held his own. So that was pretty good. In terms of Chardavius Ward, I feel like, in the prior matchups against the Seahawks, there's a little more zone coverage on
Hmm.
DK Metcalf, so Ward was a little able to hold his own a little bit against that. Versus in this game, I felt like we were seeing more man, like Ward was being left on an island against DK Metcalf sometimes,
Yeah.
and you're like, what are you doing? Like DK Metcalf is like on that one play where they call that all out blitz and Metcalf, takes that 50-yard touchdown to the house.
Yeah.
You're like, like the minute I saw the all out blitz, I was like, crap, this is going to DK Metcalf over the top. Like, there's no safety help. There's literally no safety help. And literally, Chardavius Ward turned back for like a half second to see where the ball was, and Metcalf was behind him.
Yeah.
So you can't, I feel like Ward he can man up a lot of receivers, but DK Metcalf is not a receiver he can man up.
No,
I
absolutely.
don't think there's any cornerback in the NFL that can man up against DK Metcalf, right? Given how strong and fast he is. And I mean, and Ward was doing it for some part of the game. He was manning up, but I think the adjustment D'Amico Ryans kind of made in the second half, you see, if you kind of rewatch the game, you see a little more safety help for Chardavius Ward. So he's able to kind of keep DK Metcalf inside the numbers. He gets beat on a few slants here and there, but he's basically bottling him up, right, in the second half and making sure he's not beating him over the top. But that's also a function of having some safety help and some more zone coverage. That was the key, I think, in the second half. But the other thing that was kind of concerning was the pass rush was really not getting there in the first half. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think I saw Bosa get a clean hit on Geno Smith at all in like the first half, right? Like Bosa was being neutralized, which is kind of impressive.
Yeah.
By two rookie tackles, right? That's the more
Yeah.
impressive part, that they're two rookie tackles. So, Seattle might be a little scary team in the next few years for us. But yeah, that's my thought on the defense. Like, the pressure has to get there, and it got there a little bit more in the second half. Like, you got Armstead stepping up. Had a couple other guys step up and kind of get the pressure on there. Charles Aminahu, he got there. So, those guys started getting there. But again, Bosa was completely held in check.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing, right? If these other playoff teams are watching that film and learning how to hold Bosa in check,
Yeah.
that's scary for us, right? If Bosa is being held in check, and guys like Armstead and Amina who have to step up and make plays, they can do it for sure. But then, D'Amico Ryans has to start game planning in such a way.
Absolutely no, but one thing I did see was I did see the adjustments on the front four. I did see D'Amico switching out Bosa on more than a few series in
Mm-hmm.
the second half, and I did see Givens kind of get some pressures. I did see even early on I saw Kinlaw actually in the run stop game in that first or second play he was able to stop to was Walker, right? That's his name, yeah,
Yeah,
Walker,
it
right?
was Walker. It was
Yeah,
Kenneth
yeah, he
Walker.
was able to stop Walker. Going downhill. I mean, so I like what I'm seeing. The defense is getting healthy. That's what the Fox, commentators kept saying throughout I think Dale Johnson, everyone, he's like, yeah, this team's getting healthy at the right time. That guy, Eric Armstead, that guy,
Yeah. Yep.
and so I think you're right. There is definitely that concern, right? If Bosa can't get the pressure early and he can't be effective in the first half, against because teams are going to out game plan for him because he is a defensive player of the year. He's going to get those double teams. So but if he's getting triple team, then you definitely need to the other three guys to step up. So I
Absolutely.
mean, and I think it can be done because with Givens, with Givens, with Samson, right? Ebicom,
Ebicom.
right? I mean, you
Yep.
do have we have a lot of depth, on the
We do.
lines.
We for
Yeah,
sure do. And even Drake Jackson out there, you got
I
him.
forgot, of course, yeah, the rookie.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting.
Uh, the only thing is, like, if Bosa and those guys aren't getting the pressure, and then you got like safety blitz Hafunga, oh my god, that's like last thing you want to do is put these guys on islands against, like,
Oh
elite
no,
wide receivers, right?
yeah,
Like, let's say
no,
we play the Vikings next week, and you do not want to be safety blitzing Hufunga and leaving Justin Jefferson in man coverage, man. Like, that's not what you want to be doing, right? You don't want Justin Jefferson to have man coverage. It doesn't matter who the cornerback is. Like, it could be, Richard Sherman in his prime and Justin Jefferson's putting moves on that guy, right? So you have to have some safety help and make sure Justin Jefferson is not, making these house calls on you.
100%. No, and I think that was kind of to your point. Actually, when back to my last episode of Randy, I was asking about LT. He basically said, John Ayers, on the right side or left side, right? He basically said that he did a phenomenal job, during those years, and ultimately, I mean, when we think about obviously Bosa, the teams are going to start game planning for him more, like you said, so I do think that you're right. They're going to have to probably not going to be able to dial up the blitz as much. I think they're just going to have to play contain. But I do think that, hopefully, I mean, with how the secondary played. I think with how Gibson has obviously shown, and obviously, some of the other guys like such as Odom, and it's nice to see Jenkins get some reps, near the end of the game yesterday. It was nice to see, obviously even Womack get some reps near the end of the game. Good to see the rookie get his, his minutes in, because you need those fresh legs, for these playoff matchups,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
You definitely need them, and so. I think yesterday was almost like, I'm not gonna say it's a tune-up game, but it's kind of like, really, getting the team kind of loose and getting them ready, getting the guys who need the reps, get the reps necessary, so that way when they do play, let's say, like you said, if Minnesota wins today, if they do play Minnesota next week, they will be enough depth, in the event that the blitz is not working, and you're gonna have to get
Yeah.
I'm not sure, figure out some way with the secondary to
You have to get there somehow without the blitz, right?
yeah.
That's been what Niners defense has been, right? They'll dial up a couple of blitzes, but most of the time they're able to get there without, and like get there with four guys, four down linemen. That's it. We're getting there. The pressure's there. Sometimes they'll occasionally blitz Fred Warner, that type of stuff, or Drake Greenlaw. The one the blitz I hate is the safety blitz with Hufanga. Like that just messes up. Just don't do that. Just don't safety blitz. Just don't ever call up a safety blitz. Maybe you take Fred Warner or Drake Greenlaw and blitz them up the middle, but just eliminate the safety blitz, D'Amico. Don't do that.
Yeah, safety blitz never works.
Yes, almost never.
Almost never. And ultimately, it causes, like you said, it opens up that hole, in the middle. Obviously, teams that want to go deep, especially a team like Minnesota who can go deep, right? With Jefferson and, with Thielen and, those weapons that they have, on the receiving core, they're really going to have to figure out, it's going to be a good game for the Niners if they do get Minnesota, because it's going to help them kind of prepare, not just for Philly, but also if they're able to just somehow, go to Philadelphia, beat Philly, and then make the Super Bowl against the KC and if Buffalo or Cincinnati, right? With those receiving core, I mean, it's going to give them, that kind of, again, more exposure to kind of, figure out a game plan. That's going to be effective.
I mean, you look at the teams that are left here in the NFC, Dallas, they have CeeDee Lamb. Right. Tampa has Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Minnesota has Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. Eagles have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. These are all really good wide receivers, man. Yeah. And then look at the AFC. You got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Yeah, I mean, Kansas City probably has the worst wide receivers out of the bunch with Juju Smith and those guys, right?
Yeah. Kelsey.
And Kelsey, right? Obviously, you have Kelsey there in Kansas City, but that's what I'm saying. Like, these are some pretty scary wide receivers. The Bills have Stephon Diggs, and they have the other guy, but he hasn't been done much this season.
Yeah, Gabriel Davis.
Yeah, he hasn't done much, but each of these teams has at least one elite wide receiver or tight end, and then a second wide receiver that's not maybe elite, but pretty damn good wide receiver.
Yeah, and I think that's always been an Achilles heel for the Niners. This millennium, like they built their defense on the front four and the linebacking core, and for some reason, secondary has always been that Achilles, right? And no disrespect to my other guest, Terrell Brown, if he's listening to this, obviously, because I mean, he did start in that Super Bowl, right? And but I mean, he'll tell you himself. I mean, the defense, they felt like they could have, they got beat. I mean, plain simple. So. Ultimately, I think, like you said, if the secondary is just going to have to clamp up, it's plain simple. They're going to have to find a way, like you said, against some of these elite wide receivers who can, obviously stretch the field and, basically, especially like you said, I mean, especially with Buffalo, and especially with Philadelphia and Cincinnati, because I mean, those deep kind of threat receivers with those speed and they present matchup problems for any team, so yep. I mean, it's going to be good for the Niners, if they get Minnesota for that reason. And I think, and also, I mean, because Minnesota also has a pretty good offensive line with Christian Darrisaw, right? I mean, that's going to, like you said, but the other problem about both on the front four, being able to generate pressure, that's going to help them obviously get that, that level of exposure, again, to when maybe, the pressure may not be coming from 97, who's going to be the second man up, so. Exactly.
Yep.
So moving on, like you said, let's talk about some of the other matchups, coming up. Obviously, we got the Vikings and the Giants today, around 1:30. Not everyone's watching the Bills and Dolphins because, I mean, whatever. But
who wants to watch Skylar Thompson get killed by the Buffalo? Yeah. Nobody.
Von Miller is going to be eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, in about, exactly. He's probably eating right now. So, yeah. I mean, so ultimately, because the first time that the Giants and the Vikings played, it was 27-24. The Giants, they had opportunities to win that game. I mean, every sports outlet will tell you that, on FS1, ESPN, What are you thinking, or what are you looking for in the Giants and Vikings game? Kind of what are you looking for? For the
Yeah,
Niners.
I would say, keep an eye out on that Giants defense, right? That's
Yeah.
that's kind of the unit that's propelling the Giants here into the playoffs. I mean, granted, Daniel Jones hasn't been as terrible as he was the last few seasons, but I'm not scared of the Giants offense. Like
Right.
I mean, obviously you focus in on Saquon, but their wide receivers are, I mean, they're starting a guy we cut, Richie James, right? Like,
Yeah.
a good player, but their receiving corpse is not something I'm scared of. Um, so on the Giants, it's watching the defense and seeing, can they slow down the Minnesota offense, right? That's really what I'm watching is, can they slow down Kirk Cousins? And they showed that they could kind of do that in the regular season, and does that carry over here into the playoffs, right? Can they do the same thing? Can they slow down Kirk Cousins? Can they slow down Dalvin Cook? Can they slow down Justin Jefferson and keep those guys in check and give themselves a shot to win this game, right? I mean, I don't like, it's going to be a pretty close game is what I think. That Giants Vikings game is going to be pretty close, and it's just going to be on Daniel Jones to not make any mistakes and make some boneheaded plays or something like that. I think if he kind of game manages it, almost like an Alex Smith type of game, where he kind of game manages this, and gives his defense a shot, and relies on Saquon Barkley, the Giants have a chance to win this.
100%. I bet it's going to come down to the Giants secondary against the Vikings wide receiving core. That's what I think that's where the match is going to be won or lost, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
so far this season, Justin Jefferson has had his way, with DBs, but at the same time, the Minnesota Vikings defense is atrocious in my opinion.
Atrocious,
I mean,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
atrocious. It's like they're so bad that I mean, no, I mean, that was it. They have the worst differential, I think, right? The lowest point differential out of any team
Wow,
that's over 10 plus wins, this
that's
season.
crazy.
So
That's
it's
crazy.
it's crazy. Obviously, Niners have the most, obviously takeaways and turnover differential, right, out of any team left. So, I mean that's and to me personally, I remember, I mean, there's so many teams we can go now who won the Super Bowl, years past. They've either been in the top five or number one, in that turnover differential margin, right? So, I think it's going to be interesting, right? I think I want to see how Kirk plays, in the prime time, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
that's prime time. Kirk is a completely different animal, than many others.
Yep, yep.
So, I mean, I think Kirk, against Matt Ryan this year was pretty nice to watch, but I mean, you're not going to get that same. You're not going to get Matt Ryan in the Colts every single week. So,
Right, exactly. And you know, obviously, if Minnesota wins today, Kyle Shanahan knows Kirk Cousins like the backside of his hand, man. So I'm okay with Minnesota winning today. I'd rather have a guy like Kyle Shanahan face a guy like Kirk Cousins, where he knows this guy's tendencies and he can just do everything possible to disrupt him on the defensive side. So, but yeah, I mean, we could talk about the Tampa Bay and Dallas matchup, which I don't know why it's on a Monday night. That's kind of odd, but whatever.
yeah,
Uh, I don't know who wants to watch Brady versus Dak like on a Monday night football. Like, why not just get him in on a Saturday and call it a day?
so simple. I was just
Yeah,
like, I
give
was
him the
thinking, I'm
10
like,
a.m. slot on Saturday, man. Just do that.
I mean, I was thinking there was a 10 a.m. slot open yesterday, and no one had it. I mean, it would be perfect to have Tampa Bay hosting. Obviously the
Yeah,
time zone difference. It'd be 1
exactly.
p.m. Eastern time. I mean, that's
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know, but I mean, in that game, if we're talking that game, it just really comes down to Brady. Can Brady generate enough offense for Tampa Bay to beat Dallas? Right, Dallas has been putting up points, and Dak's been playing pretty well the last few games. And CeeDee Lamb's gotten going, and their run game with Tony Pollard and Zeke, it's been pretty good. So if Tom Brady can generate points, Tampa Bay has a chance to knock off the Giants, right? So, and
But don't forget, Dallas did not play good in their last game before this playoff started,
yeah,
and
okay, yeah,
Tampa
yeah.
Bay definitely did not play any better
No,
than the Dallas in the last game.
yeah, yeah. But I
And
mean, Dak's been like, he put up like, what was it, 40 on the Eagles, and he put up like another 38 or something like that in the, like, before the last game. They were putting up points,
yeah,
right? And really the last game Dallas didn't have anything to play for, right? They were kind of locked in
yeah.
at the top of the wild card. There was no way they were moving from there. So that I assume that's why Dallas didn't play that well in the last game. But yeah, I mean, I would say, I don't know. It's a toss up. It's a real toss up. It's, if Brady can generate enough points for Tampa Bay, I think Tampa Bay takes the game, right? I
Yeah.
think they can pull out enough stops there too. But it really, like, I think basically if Brady can get him 3-4 touchdowns, Tampa Bay can win this thing.
Yeah. Then the question is, if Brady goes to Philadelphia, how's he going to do against that Eagles?
No,
I mean,
he's
front
gonna get
four.
killed. He's gonna
He's
get
going
killed.
to, yeah. If Dallas wins, them going to Philadelphia is a very interesting matchup because we haven't seen
So
Dak versus.
actually, so
Yeah.
actually, if I think so, if Dallas wins and Minnesota wins, then they go to Philly. But if Minnesota loses, Dallas plays us.
Yeah. Then
Isn't
New
that
York
great?
goes to Philly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why the NFL started doing this reseeding thing, but I guess they started when they added this, the seventh team in the wild card. So
Yeah, when they had 17 wild card, kind of like changed everything because I
yep,
mean, obviously, but worked in our favor last season because we were the
it did.
17,
It did.
right? And
Yes,
so, but then now it's like, well, I mean, the second seed doesn't get a bye week. And when I had Randy on, he said, well, the bye week it's always better to get that 1 week of rest than getting your ass kicked, and then having to go and
exactly.
play
Yeah,
the next week,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's never better, it's
It's never
extra
better.
yeah. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think when I look at it, I think Dallas, if New York wins today, and then somehow let's say Dallas wins, or even if Tampa Bay wins, actually no, more so if Dallas wins. I think Dallas presents. If they come here to San Francisco, it's going to be a much better. I mean, it'll be a close matchup. I mean, just like last year's kind of playoff that we had, right?
Yep, yep.
Probably a single score, differential, or I guess, final score margin. But I think Tampa Bay, though, if they win, I'm not sure. If Tom Brady gets some momentum going, can he go to Philadelphia and upset the Eagles? I don't know that.
No, no way. I just
Yeah,
don't think Tampa Bay could do it. I think
yeah,
he gets hammered by that Eagles defense, that Eagles offense with Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Miles Sanders, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Like it's just too much, man. It's
yeah.
just too much for Tampa Bay to handle. Like Tampa Bay shouldn't even be in the playoffs if we're being honest, right?
Absolutely. No, and I mean, here's another question. I mean, I know we have the division champions divisions, but shouldn't we just look at the record and just go with the best record gets in? I mean, that would be so much.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't. I think the NFL should just like. I think it's meaningless to win your division now. Like it should
Yeah.
just. If you're at the top of your division, great, fantastic, you won your division, right? But the NFL wants to hold this like, oh, it means something to win your division. You guarantee a playoff spot, right? They want to make the divisions mean something, right? Because then otherwise it's like, okay, great. Like I think the NBA does this, right? Even if you win your division, you're not necessarily guaranteed one of the top spots. You're still seeded based on your record.
Your record. Yeah.
Yeah. So I. But then it's like divisions in the NBA are kind of meaningless. It's just more for scheduling purposes, right? So it diminishes the division. So I don't know if the NFL is ready to do that. But the NFL should just go to 34 teams and have 8 teams make the playoffs in each that'd
be perfect. I mean, there's some cities which are crying for a team, right now, and I mean they could definitely use it. So
exactly, yeah. Put a team up in Vancouver or something, and put a team somewhere in some other city like Mexico City or something, and call it a day.
that'd be perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mexico. I mean, they're all Raiders fans. I think actually no, there's a lot of Niners.
They're all
fans.
Niner fans. They're all Niner fans. Yeah,
it's because I think what happened was after the Raiders left for Vegas, then there's no team in north of the border in Cali, so you got to support the Niners.
But I think they've been pretty big Niner fans down in Mexico City because Niners have played there pretty frequently.
Yeah, I mean we played. I think Niners played there. What was it? 7 years ago? Was it for Thursday night or what was it? The first time they went there.
Yeah, I think it was about 7 years ago, and then they've been going there almost every year.
Yeah.
For the and then 1 or 2 years they skipped it, but they've been going to Mexico City for like the last 7-8 years.
7-8 years, yeah. So I mean, it's great to see that presence. Niners, and it's funny. Now we're talking about the fan attendance. Niners were number one, in home game attendance. By average attendance per game this year with 71,000. Ticket holders,
Nice.
And obviously you see how our fans travel to Los Angeles.
Yeah. I was gonna say, are they also counting the LA games as home games for us?
Pretty much, yeah. Basically, what do they call it? They call it Levi South.
Levi South, right? Yeah, exactly. Levi South.
Yeah, who said it? It was Kittle. Yeah. George Kittle. He said Levi South in the post game after they beat them.
Oh man, that's too good.
It's too good. So I mean, but I think I'm looking. I think if New York wins, then it shakes up everything, right? But if Minnesota kind of if it's a close game again, then I think we can kind of like we just talked about. I mean, there's nothing really kind of unexpected or unpredicted, in the next round. I think so
exactly. I mean, I don't think any of those 3 teams, Giants, Cowboys, Tampa, can beat Philadelphia in Philly. It's just not happening. It's just not going to happen, right?
So, no, yeah.
I think between the Niners and Vikings, you have a better chance of a team beating Philadelphia in Philly, but those other 3 teams, I don't really see it. Philadelphia is just that's the only team in the NFC that scares me, man, to be honest with you, is Philadelphia, right? And having to go, let's say, we get Minnesota, we beat Minnesota, we go into the NFC Championship game. Having to go into Philly with Brock Purdy at quarterback, rookie guy, it's a lot of pressure for him, NFC Championship game, playing a team like Philadelphia who could absolutely decimate our defense, right? They
Mhm.
could they just have that kind of team, right? It's very Kansas City like in their offense. Jalen Hurts has been picking teams apart with his legs, with his arm. So that's the team that scares me. If we're talking about teams that scare you, I'm probably more scared of Philadelphia than I am of any other team that's either in the AFC or the NFC in the playoffs right now.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
More than
Yes.
Kansas City.
More than Kansas City, even though Kansas City destroyed us. I know they destroyed us, but um, I am more scared of Philadelphia for sure.
Okay. So if the Niners find a way to beat Philadelphia, then you're thinking that we should take the Super Bowl, right?
That's what I'm. Yeah, I think if we find a way to beat Philly and we come out of that game healthy and no major injuries and we are in the Super Bowl, I think we have a very good shot of winning the Super Bowl then.
It's funny. That's why I asked Randy, about that exact kind of scenario, right? He basically said, yeah, if the Niners find a way, to will their way, through the NFC and get to the Super Bowl, whether it's against he thinks Buffalo or KC, that's who he's picking. I mean, he expects it to be a classic. He expects it to be a classic game, just
Yeah,
because the
yeah, absolutely.
high-powered offense versus a high-powered defense. Well, now we also have high-powered offense too, so
Yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I would say a really good Super Bowl probably would be Niners Bills. Like that would be a very
Oh
fun
yeah.
Super Bowl. But Bills Eagles would be a fun one. KC Eagles would be a fun one. I just don't want to see another KC Niners one. I don't want them to keep losing to Kansas City again on
Yeah,
stupid holding
no.
calls, or stupid pass interference calls. Like I don't want that. I don't want to see KC in the Super Bowl. I
But
really
wait,
don't.
I just had you on record saying that if they beat the Eagles, you're not worried about the Super Bowl. I mean, if
I'm not.
Casey's
No, no,
there,
I'm not. I know. I just don't want to see it again. I don't
yeah,
want.
yeah,
We've already seen it. We've already seen
we've seen
ourselves
that,
in
yeah,
Casey. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I mean, KC would be my number 2 team that scares me after the
Absolutely.
Eagles,
No, I think
given how much they've beaten us.
absolutely. No, I mean, I think so. Casey and I see some similarities between them and the Eagles. Kind of, they both have great front fours. Casey's secondary is not as good, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, as
Yep.
the Eagles secondary.
Yep. I agree with that.
Yeah, so I think Patrick Mahomes has been doing a great job, kind of, and Chris Jones, obviously that front four, they've also been doing a great job, kind of, winning the games, and they're winning the game, in the trenches, they're winning the game, through the air and down the field, right? So that's why Patrick Mahomes is going to be, I think he was first team All Pro. He was named last week first team All Pro. Jalen Hurts was named second team, so it's obviously MVP is going to be. So I think it's been one of those things where you've seen kind of Patrick Mahomes just basically have this MVP season, just willing the Chiefs to wins. The good thing though in Niners' favor, right, is that with that the secondary isn't as good. Obviously, I think, and with Brock Purdy now being that mobile quarterback, obviously the first time they played, Jimmy was just basically being a statue and not being able to do anything when
Yeah.
basically Chris Jones,
Yeah.
Frank Clark, beat McGlinchey or they beat Williams and just got to him. I mean, Brock Purdy, I mean, we've seen him like, this last game against Seattle. If the offensive line is not doing their job, he can still, get out of the pocket and make plays. I trust him a
100%.
lot more
Yeah.
than I do, any other quarterback we've had, to memory. So,
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
yeah. So, I bet. I think Philadelphia. I mean, I'm not as scared for them as of them because the fact Jalen hurts his shoulder and Lane Johnson's not 100%.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
Yes, that's fair. They're not 100%. That's a good point. And I guess you got to throw Buffalo in that mix too. That they are pretty because they have a pretty good defense and a pretty good offense. So, yeah, I mean those are easily the top 3 teams. You could put them in whatever order. I would say if let's just say Jalen Hurts gets 100% and Lane Johnson gets 100% by the NFC Championship game because they got another week to rest, all that kind of stuff. Philly probably scares me the most when they're at 100%.
yeah.
And then it's, I think, you're just splitting hairs between Kansas City and Buffalo as the number 2. But yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
100%. No, but it's just one thing I hate is to the Philly fans just chirping on Twitter about how the Niners played such a soft schedule and all this stuff. Like,
What about Philly's soft schedule, man?
yeah, exactly. Like, was it like the lowest strength of schedule in the league? Isn't that is it that?
Something like, yeah, I'll look this up, but
Yeah,
it's something like that. It's something crazy like that. Let's look this up while we
yeah.
continue talking.
While you do that, let me go ahead and check the Buffalo Bills Miami Dolphins game score. Let's go ahead and see what this is. 14-0 with two and a half left in the first quarter. Okay, nothing expected. Oh, we forgot to talk about yesterday's Jaguars and Chargers game.
Oh yeah, let's
So,
do it, man. Let's do it. Let's talk about that.
yeah,
That
so
was
that was yeah, good.
No, that was insane, man. I was like, what? I didn't even like. I'd finished watching the Niners game. I was like, all right, I'll just do like a couple of things around the house, whatever. And then I like checked in on the score, and I was like, damn, Trevor Lawrence is already throwing 4 interceptions at this point. Holy crap! It's like not even the end of the half, and they're down 27-0. I was like, oh, this game's over. I'm not gonna even bother watching this anymore.
Yeah.
And then one of my buddies texts me. He's like, dude, did the Jaguars just win the game? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't even bother to check the scores, man.
Yeah.
And they somehow won that game, man. That's pretty crazy to me, right? I don't know, man. Trevor Lawrence just did not look the part in the first half, and you were like, man, this guy looks worse than he looks worse than Zach Wilson right now in the playoffs.
To my Twitter network, I do apologize for my tweet that my co-host graciously corrected me on about the draft class of 2021 being the worst because Trevor Lawrence. My apologies to you if you're listening. You're probably not. You're probably doing whatever you have with your millions of dollars. Yes, the 2021 draft class is not the worst draft class. Trevor Lawrence proved that yesterday. Obviously, the grit and determination and the will to get the team over the hump, down 27, third largest playoff comeback in NFL history. Obviously behind, I think, was it the Patriots and then the Buffalo Bills, the miracle not the Patriots, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Indianapolis Colts, or the Colts over the Chiefs, in 2013, and the miracle, the Music City Miracle, right? Tennessee.
Yes, the Music City Miracle. Yep.
Another one of my guests, Chris Dishman, was on that team, and he basically said, the Houston Oilers or the Tennessee Titans just playing it flat out choked in that game. So, I mean, that's So, so third largest playoff comeback ever. I mean, you want to talk about confidence? Trevor Lawrence, exudes it. But I mean, for some reason, I still just take Brock's, just his leadership and just that intangible kind of presence. It's something that you just can't really measure. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if there's a way to, you know what I mean?
You can't measure it, but Trevor Lawrence definitely showed that yesterday, right? Like, this is a guy who had 2 interceptions, I think, within the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And he just found a way to bounce back, man. Like, he just came back guns blazing in that second half. He was hitting guys left and right. He was just like, I guess he was just like, hey, I got nothing to lose. I've already thrown 4 picks. What's another 3-4 more picks if it happens here?
Yeah.
And he was just making plays after play. He had Travis Etienne Jr. with him, making plays. I mean, honestly, like, the guy has no wide receivers and he's making plays. So, he's definitely proving he's going to be a pretty good quarterback here in the league. And he showed that last night, coming back down from throwing 4 picks and all that adversity he's facing, down 27-0. I mean, I think they were down 30-0 at some point, right? And they came back and scored 31 straight unanswered points. So, definitely a good confidence boost for Trevor Lawrence, and that guy's going to be in the league for a long time and making great plays.
100%. No, and I mean, one more thing which Randy touched upon, kind of like, one thing Niners did great was signing Lynch and Shanahan to that 7-year extension, early on, because you can see, how that materializes into success. One thing the Jaguars did, which is kind of the adverse, was basically firing Urban Meyer, after one season, and then bring in Doug Peterson. I mean, shout out to, Shad Khan, I mean, this is his first playoff? No, that's not his first playoff win, but, obviously, I mean, like, he has a pretty good, kind of situation. Trevor Lawrence is a great situation, but Shad Khan has the organization set up for success under Peterson's leadership, at least for in my opinion, next foreseeable future, maybe next decade, because
I agree with you. I think he made the right move. He was like, oh man, Urban Meyer's a bit of a joke. Let me get rid of this guy. So, I mean, I think that's what great owners do. They learn from their past mistakes, like kind of like Jed York. He learned from his mistakes in the Harbaugh, bulky, dust up. Like, I mean, he did pretty good. Like, I would say, like, he got off to a little bit of a rocky start there where he brought in, man, who was the coach before Harbaugh? I can't even remember.
Singletary.
Was it Singletary? Yes. So he yes. My God, I forgot about the Singletary days, man. I just put it in a black box there and just put it aside. But yeah, I mean, he was smart, right? He's like, okay, Singletary's not getting the job done here. He went out, thought about it pretty fresh, brought in a guy like Harbaugh. Then the whole debacle between Harbaugh and Balky happened, and then we had the Jim Tomsula mistake, the Chip Kelly mistake in between. But then he's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a step back here. I'm going to set my coach up for long-term success. He brings in Shanahan. Shanahan says, I want a guy like, I want Lynch with me in here. He gives Shanahan the choice to pick his guy. So Balky learned, and Shah Khan learned here with Urban Meyer. He's like, all right, I can't have this kind of stupid college coach that doesn't know how to actually coach in the NFL.
Right.
I'm gonna go get a guy like Doug Peterson, who's actually won a Super Bowl and really transformed this team, and give my franchise quarterback some stuff to work with. I just think the Jaguars need to go find a wide receiver now for Trevor Lawrence and give him some weapons. Right? Etienne Jr. is obviously a nice piece, but I don't know why Trent Baalke decided Christian Kirk is going to be the guy, and they're going to pay him that massive contract. No, Christian Kirk, great fantasy player, not so great NFL wide receiver.
That is my fantasy MVP. Got me my third place finish in my fantasy league. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so I just think the Jaguars go find a big play wide receiver. The guy, a possession type wide receiver that can be a weapon here for Trevor Lawrence, and that's going to be a pretty good team for the next few years. Their defense is built pretty stout, and I think I think we'll kind of see them here contending for the AFC South title for the next few years.
No, absolutely. And I think, to your point, I want you back to one more thing about Randy's point, which was kind of, what you just talked about. When they signed Shanahan, seeing him chose Lynch, and then they signed the whole intent of Jed York doing the long-term extension was that you guys, to avoid the Baalke Harbaugh debacle, is that you guys are going to be joined at the hip. So if one falls, the other one. It's not going to be me or he or me, because you saw how because after Harbaugh left, then I see, like you said, Tom Sula, Chip Kelly, it was just a coaching carousel. And then obviously he feels, okay, Baalke, you got to go. This is not working. So ultimately, to the point, is that, with having that kind of tandem of accountability, of two guys, being able to, be accountable with each other, as opposed to kind of, with the one head coach is like a star, and then the GM's wondering why he's not, the star. And we've seen this not just in the Niners, we've seen this through countless sports dynasties, such as the Bulls, right? With what's his name? Jerry, the GM.
Jerry Coangelo?
Yeah. Jerry, what's last name?
Coangelo.
No, not Colangelo. It was Jerry Krause. That's his name. Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson.
Yeah. Jerry Krause.
They said, like,
there you go.
This is Phil Jackson's last season, and Mike Jordan not wanting to play there. Phil wasn't there. There's a lot of issues with, with the credit, the GM, being in the background. He's not always on screen, but you do see John Lynch on screen a lot in the sideline. And even if he wasn't, he wouldn't care. Because John Lynch already had his glory, as a player, being in the Hall of Fame. That's one of the things I really, appreciate and admire as a fan, John Lynch is, his ability to kind of humble his ego. It's good to kind of have a football guy who actually played the game, in that position, kind of like Dwight Clark, obviously, shout out, rest in peace, Dwight Clark. Against it's this week, because he was going to be, his birthday was last week and the catch was on Wednesday, which I talked about, in my last guest. But, ultimately, I think, with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, you're not really seeing that power struggle because they are joining at the hip, with their contracts.
Yep.
So
exactly. And Lynch gives Kyle enough ability to, call, like, make decisions, and like Kyle, like, I feel like they really make decisions in tandem. Like, it's not like Kyle Shannon will call up John Lynch, hey man, go get me Joe Williams, and John Lynch is like, all right, let me think about it. All right, we'll just do it, Kyle. You want him, we'll get him. So it's not like Lynch is like telling Shanahan, nah, you can't have your guy. He really does do his best to kind of balance it out, like get the guys that his scouts are telling him and the guys Shanahan wants, and they both scouted trade together, and they decided on trade together. So I don't know where Lynch stood on, what his thoughts were in terms of who the guy he probably liked, and no one's ever asked him that. But I imagine he was like, okay, me and Shanahan, we're going to look at these guys together. We're going to figure it out. And Trey was the guy they decided on. And I'm sure Lynch was probably like, like, I feel like the scouting department of the Niners is pretty good. Like, they're finding these late round gems all the time. Like, it's insane. It's insane how many gems they found in the late round, and Purdy just being the latest of the bunch.
And that's the issue with kind of like, the another hallmark of a great organization is how many assistants are being poached by other teams. The Niners are never, they're always top of that list in terms of how many assistants and scouts, and, obviously Adam Peters, right? Mm-hmm. Being a, potential, good thing you declined, I think was the Broncos, whoever it was, or no, Titans.
Yeah, Cardinals. Cardinals.
Yeah.
Cardinals and Titans, I think. Cardinals and Titans.
Both of them. And so, I mean, I think ultimately, like, I mean, having a good scouting department, just having, that's how you get the hallmark of great organizations. So Niners are definitely set for years to come. But, I mean, I think looking ahead, I mean, this team is only going to get better. I mean, there's no reason for me to think otherwise. I mean, like you said, the potential of Brock regressing. I mean, how far can you regress? I mean, ultimately,
Yeah.
teams figure him out, but they've had 6, 7 games already. We did see Kaepernick regress, after 1 or 2 seasons, but that's because Kaepernick, in my opinion, couldn't really play from the pocket like Brock Purdy
Yeah.
can.
Exactly. I mean, Kaepernick was kind of a one-trick pony with the read option. He didn't really make his progressions, but dude could fly once he's on the read
Yeah.
option. So, I mean, I think if Kaepernick was given a few more seasons under Harbaugh, he would have made a little bit more developments. But you put Jim Tom Sula as coach, and then obviously the whole kneeling stuff, and the NFL blackballs him, that kind of thing. Uh, but I think if he had Harbaugh for like 2 more, 3 more years, he might have not seen as big of a regression because I think Kaepernick was starting to make strides. But
It's funny you mentioned that because I remember around 2015 when Cam Newton won MVP, made the Super Bowl. Like one of my friends basically, yeah, he's like that could be Cap. Kaepernick could
exactly,
basically,
yeah, it could have been.
become that. So
Yeah, it could have been, but unfortunate circumstances. He has Jim Tomsula, Chip Kelly, and then the whole kneeling stuff happens. But he could have. We definitely would have seen a couple more years out of Kaepernick as a pretty mid to high level quarterback for sure.
mid to high level, yeah. So I mean, but ultimately, I think Brock has the potential to become an elite quarterback.
Yeah, I mean we're talking about a guy who could be multiple All Pros at some point in his career.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. So I mean, that's the most promising aspect, of this whole playoff season of this season. Of the fact that now they have an answer. At least in the interim. But I do think that like we just talked about the playoffs. This playoffs is going to determine a lot. A lot about futures, a lot about whether the team stays together or they have to dismantle it. Unfortunately, because they really, I mean, I really think they have a very small window to win the Super Bowl just because I mean, amount of free agents and the amount of people who might stay or go. I mean, especially
Yep.
from the front four.
Yep.
So
And the money you have to pay these guys, like Bosa's
yeah.
gonna be, man, Bosa is gonna get like 35 million plus a year.
Oh,
So
easily.
he's gonna
Yeah.
get a bag. Then you got guys like IU coming up. So yeah, it's important to be able to draft guys and find these hidden gems, undrafted free agents, etc., to keep kind of building your depth. And the Niners have been doing a good job of that. So I see, I want to say go Niners and we're going to win the Super Bowl, but, got to be cautiously optimistic and take it one game at a time. And I'm not going to put that kind of jinx on them and say, yeah, we're 100% winning the Super Bowl. So I'm just going to say we're going to take it one game at a time. We're going to, focus each week and see what happens. And I'm not going to call it here for the Niners just yet.
No, not yet, not yet. So let's go ahead and switch gears for the last part of this episode about with NBA because you mentioned NBA. Rob Brooks on the post game basically said the Niners are like the Warriors, where the defense basically, if you remember the early Warriors days, right? I mean, you being a Warriors fan, the defense was what basically helped the Warriors kind of
100%. Yeah.
lock the team down, and then the offense would basically close seal the deal. We're seeing that now with this Niners team. Also like the defense is kind of but it's a little bit different. I think the offense is kind of getting them in position. The defense is kind of like locking, closing, clamping down the second quarter, closing the deal. So I think it's interesting to see that parallel. And I mean, it's funny because the Warriors are doing well. The Sacramento Kings are now 4th in the Western Conference right now. I mean,
they're doing well, man. They're doing well.
Yeah, Mike Brown being a defensive minded coach too. I mean, even though the Kings aren't a top defensive team, like in terms of rating, I mean, you can see them make critical plays when down the stretch, and that's kind of the Western Conference is wide open still at this point. It's anyone's game. I mean, it's only I think a 4 or 5 game differential between 1 and 10. Mm-hmm. So I mean, everyone's still in it. I think Warriors are still in it, right? I'm not even sure what the Warriors
everyone's in it. Like anyone from 1 to 12 is still in it, right? Like,
yeah,
I think the only team that maybe not in it is. Man, I can't even tell you. All the teams are still in it. Like that's how crazy it is. Like I can't even say one team's not in it. Like they're all just everyone's still in the hunt. Like I want to say maybe the Timberwolves are at the bottom of the conference and they're still like 3-4 games out of the 8th seed. So it's just crazy, man. It's the widest the NBA has ever been in terms of like how open it is to make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, but it's pretty cool to see De'Aaron Fox was top 10 All-Star voting. I mean, that's it's cool and obviously.
I'm gonna say one thing. I think he's getting totally disrespected. Like he should be top 5. He should be top 5.
Absolutely.
He's having an amazing season. Season. Like I'm a Warriors fan, but De'Aaron Fox is having an amazing season. He's totally being disrespected by fans. Sabonis is being disrespected by fans. Sabonis should definitely be a top 10 guy in the All-Star votes. Like why the hell is Kevon Looney in there? Like I'm a Warriors fan. He has no business being on there. I would even say Draymond has no business being on there. I mean, like just dude, fans, get your shit together. Stop voting for these guys. Vote for the guys who deserve it, like Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. Like De'Aaron Fox should be almost like a starter in that All-Star game. Like that's how well he's playing.
Absolutely. No, he should definitely be a star because if you're leading a team, to the fourth seed and potentially a 50 plus win season, which is where I'm predicting the Kings will be at the end of the year, and probably even, winning a playoff series potentially, in the playoffs. I mean, they have an opportunity to do that.
Yep.
There should not be any reason why he's not, at least top five, in the votes category.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. But fans are stupid, man. So
yeah.
like you can't always like people are just like, oh, I'm gonna vote Austin Reeves in, and like, why the hell is Austin Reeves even in the top 10 in guards? Like, I don't get it, man. Like, why the hell is Austin Reeves there? Like, stop it, you damn Laker fans. Like, stop voting for Austin Reeves.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because, I mean, Charles Barkley said this over, I think, 10, 11 years ago when Monte Ellis was up for ballot, right? Back in 2011. Yep. And probably Charles Barkley on Inside the NBA on TNT basically told, because Tim Duncan was the lead vote getter, he basically said to Kenny Shaq, like, stop giving the Lifetime Achievement Award. Just stop giving the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, that's the only reason LeBron's in there and Westbrook's in there. It's like these lifetime, like, people are like, oh yeah, LeBron, he's a superstar. Westbrook, he's a superstar. I'm just gonna vote for him because I know their names, right? I think the problem is the NBA has to change this where the fan vote shouldn't count as much. Like fan vote right now is like 50% of the
50%.
Right, it represents 50% of the total like vote. And so it's like, why give fans 50%? Dude, just give them like 20% and figure out like, like maybe like coaches can vote, but they can't vote for their own team, something like that. Like the media, I think having the media and players vote is a good thing. And I think you just throw coaches in the mix and you kind of split everything, 25, 25, 25, 25. And then make it so like coaches can't vote for their own players. That's it. Like,
is that simple? Yeah, no, I think
it's that simple. Like, just fix it, man. Don't give fans so much damn power.
Yeah, I mean, and
otherwise you're gonna have Austin Reeves as a reserve in the All-Star game, man. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see Austin Reeves. No one wants to see him.
No one wants to do that. So yeah, no, I think and I mean, to your point, the All-Star game being a popularity contest, I mean, I really think kind of how they revised the Pro Bowl. They revised the Pro Bowl where kind of the coaches, do have more say. The NBA can do the same thing, where the coaches can, basically alter the fan vote and fans get it wrong, they fix it. Kind of like a general election, right? The popular vote doesn't decide it. It's the electoral college. We need an electoral college for the All-Star game, the NBA.
maybe, but the electoral college is not perfect either. So
yeah, no, it definitely isn't. I mean, there's so many players left off, I mean, especially the Niners. I mean, I could have argued that C-Mac should have been there. I mean, even though he only played.
Don't get me started on the C-Mac like snubbing, man.
Yeah, I mean, because ultimately, I mean, like the All-Pro selection as well as the Pro Bowl, he was left off of both, right? And
okay, All-Pro, okay, fine. You can only get 2 running backs in. Josh Jacobs had one hell of a season, so obviously that makes sense. Nick Chubb, like you could convince me Nick Chubb should be probably off and CMC on, but there's probably a handful of running backs that should have been on over Nick Chubb. But yeah, like Pro Bowl, that's just atrocious, man. Like CMC is not a Pro Bowl running back. Like, who the hell's voting on the Pro Bowl, man? Like, I don't get it. Like, who's deciding? Like, I don't know anymore, man. Like, I just feel like the NFL should just pick. Like, they should just let the media pick. Like, don't give fans a say in any of this anymore. Like, they don't watch it, they don't care. Like, don't give fans a vote in any of these things anymore. Like, scrap it. Don't give them Pro Bowl votes. Don't give them All-Star votes. Don't give them any votes. Like, scrap it, man. Like,
just scrap it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they don't. It's not like they're watching these things anyways. Let them vote on the guy who's like. Let them vote on the guys who go in the dunk contest or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because no one even watches the dunk contest anymore, and that's probably the only place where the fans vote. Maybe actually holds any merit.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, let them vote for guys that should be in the dunk contest. Let's just do that. Like, don't give them All-Star votes. Yeah.
Exactly. So. I think ultimately the NBA MVP vote running right now. I think Luka is Luka. I think Luka's leading it right now. Jason Tatum and the number 2.
You got Luka, Tatum. You got Embiid. You got Jokic. I think Jokic is actually favored over Luka, maybe.
Yeah, that's the thing. Jokic might be the first ever 3-time consecutive MVP.
Insane. But I think Luka is making a very strong case here. So
yeah,
we'll find out. I think it's Luka's kind of to lose, maybe.
Have you seen the clip of Luka from last year when Luka and Mo Wagner, they were going at it, and then Luka was like laughing, and then he said ha, and then he said why are you mad? Then he said he looked at him, then he's like who the fuck are you?
I haven't seen that. No.
Yeah. Just type in Luka and Mo Wagner. You'll find out Google.
Luka's hilarious, man. Luka's hilarious. Like he was getting his ass kicked by the Warriors last year, but he was still Like people were like, "Oh, Luka's posted up here in SF drinking a beer before the game, stuff like that." Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're in a playoff game. Why are you out here posting up drinking a beer before the game?
Yeah.
I don't know. Luka's funny, but man, it's just Luka is a guy that just amazes me. Like he's not a guy like if you look at him, you'd be like, this is like the best player. Like if you just looked at him, this is the best player in the NBA right now. Like people look at him and be like, I can't believe that. Like just looking at him, like you wouldn't
Yeah.
believe that.
No,
But he is,
absolutely.
man. He is. He's somehow. I would say he's. I mean, if not the best player right now, he's definitely top three. Like between him and Giannis and a couple other guys.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, I can see him, there's no reason for me to believe otherwise. I mean, at least talent wise, I mean, I don't know who's more talented than Luca, I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, it's not even just it's like he's not even the most athletic guy. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the strongest guy, but man, his skill level is just off the charts. Like his skill level is like insane. And that's crazy like cuz you look at Luka, he kind of plays a little slow, but then all of a sudden he gets super quick and super shifty and he just throws you off your game and it's just amazing the things Luka can do. So
100%. No, and I think one of the things about Luca is that, like you say, his game, but it's also kind of what we're just talking about. Like, I mean, if you remember James Harden when he was like, having that MVP season, when he was killing the Warriors in West Conference Finals, and they ended up losing, but but he was able to do a lot. I mean, both offensively, being able to assist and being able to kind of I mean, impacted the game in multiple facets, right? Not just scoring, right? Luca is basically a souped up version of that.
yep,
That's kind of and
exactly. I mean, Harden was also pretty like shifty and crafty, but Luca is kind of next level in terms of like he like you could see the athleticism from Harden, right? Like Harden was like you could tell this guy's quick, this guy's fast. Like
yeah.
Luca, you look at him and you can't tell that, and then he just all of a sudden hits you with a boom, and you're like, damn, how did he like? Where did this guy like that looks like he's like a little pudgy, overweight dude like make that quick cross, right?
Yeah.
You're like, holy crap, dude, like you look at you think he's just like this pudgy little guy. Like you're like pudgy little big dude, you know?
Yeah.
That's the first look of Luca. And then you see the amount of contact he takes, the amount of ability to just fight through and get to the basket and the craftiness and the skill level. It's just all there. And it's very deceptive the package it comes in. So that's the thing about Luca, man. He's just like people look at him like, oh, like now people know Luca, right? But when he was like coming into the league, people were like, will this guy be good? This kid coming over from the Euro League, whatever. He's not gonna be that good. He looks kind of like he's slow and out of shape and blah blah blah. And then he's just roasting NBA guys,
Oh yeah.
roasting defenders,
Ooh.
right? And people are like, damn. So yeah, I mean, I will say this on the Luka Trae Young debate. I was on the Trae Young side to start the debate. I always was a big fan of Trae Young. I thought he's going to be like Steph Curry 2.0. And for the most part, he's kind of been Steph Curry light. But Luka, like I did not see Luka taking it to this next level like he has.
One of the things that worries me is if the Kings stay at 4 and the Mavericks stay at 5, because we're at the midseason point right now.
You got to face Luka. You
Yeah,
got to face
and
Luka.
and,
Yeah.
and one thing you mentioned about Trae Young and Luca, right? I mean, the Kings took Marvin Bagley over Luca in that same draft. So you
Oh
can
yeah.
imagine
Yes. My
this
God.
yeah.
My God. I don't know why yeah, I remember that. I mean, okay, fine. You understood the Suns taking DeAndre Ayton. They wanted a big man. They had Devin Booker. Okay, fine. You can give him a pass for not taking Luka or Trae Young. But the Kings, I'm like, Luka was there. He was gifted to you. Why did you not take him?
Yeah. Oh my God. Luca, De'Aaron Fox. Ooh, man.
That would have been nasty, man. I mean, the Kings also traded away Tyrese Halliburton, so let's not get it twisted. Like they also had another guy that was pretty damn good. That
But
traded
they
away.
had to get
They had to.
bonus. Yeah.
They had to. Yeah,
Without
for sure.
without that, you wouldn't have
I mean,
Mr.
it's
Triple
either
Double.
it's either you trade De'Aaron Fox or you traded Halliburton. But you had
Yeah.
to trade one of the two. Those two, like, I didn't understand why the Kings took Halliburton while having De'Aaron Fox, but it worked out for them for sure.
No, it definitely worked out. The Pacers got the guard they needed, and the Kings got, Sabonis, Mr. Walking Triple Double. And speaking on NBA,
Yeah.
how we tie it back to the Niners. In closing, LeBron James went on Twitter yesterday and said Brock Purdy has game. So remember.
Oh, damn it, man! Now we're gonna lose. He's cursed Brock Purdy. Damn you, LeBron James, cursing Brock Purdy. Damn you.
But he said it in the second. He said in the second quarter. So we're fine.
Okay. All right.
He didn't say it after the game. He said it during the game. So it's
Okay.
good.
I still feel like we're getting a Brock Purdy curse from LeBron, but
No. Come on, please.
All right, no curses, LeBron's. Just keep to yourself. Focus on your Cowboys. Don't talk about our Niners.
Is he still a Cowboys fan? Or is
I
he?
don't know.
No, he's a
LeBron
Browns
changes.
fan.
He
Yeah.
changes fandom every 4 years. I don't know. Just like he changes teams, right? He's probably a Rams fan now or something.
Well, I mean, oh my God. All right. Closing thoughts before we adjourn for my co-host.
Let's go Niners. Take it one game at a time. Don't look forward. Don't worry about the Super Bowl. You're playing with house money here. Let's do it. Let's take it one game at a time.
My closing thoughts are Niners. You played. You got the webs. You got the cobwebs out. You got the jitters out. Right. You got your legs under yourself. So make sure that you came that mental forward. You build on it. Because my co-host astutely pointed out, regression can happen. Teams have more film. But with that said, the Seahawks had two or three games of film on Brock Purdy, and they couldn't do anything. So I'm really happy to see how he was able to step to the challenge. I'm looking forward to Niners, like you said, taking one game at a time. Brock Purdy was on record when they asked him about the Super Bowl. He basically said, "Super Bowl's not in my purview." He said, He's like, "I'm just focused on the task at hand." So bigger picture. Not clown his judgment. It's funny. I think he was the first rookie to win a Super Bowl. Sorry, not win a playoff game since Russell Wilson did in 2013. A playoff rookie, could do that against when Russell. I think he beat, who was it? Who Russell Wilson beat? The Washington Commanders. Commanders,
Okay.
2012, 2013, that postseason. So yeah, first time I think, in basically 10 years. So Brock Purdy could definitely become, he's in good company right now. I mean, with Russell Wilson, the most postseason passing yards since Joe Montana in Super Bowl 29. Super Bowl not 20, 2019. 330 yards against the Dolphins. So
That's impressive. Impressive. Keep it up, Purdy. You're doing
keep it up, baby. You're looking pretty good. Looking pretty good.
Well, let's end it there then. Can't say more after that.
Yeah. No, we can't. All right. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We're signing off.
All right, man. Take care.